Welcome back to Animated Bible Stories. I hope all of you remember the story of Esther so far. For those of you who haven't watched part 1 yet, I will leave a link to watch part 1. Evil Haman plotted to kill all the Jews, and our lovely Queen Esther is also a Jew. Haman did not know that though. Let's see what happens next. When Mordecai learned of the decree, he mourned deeply and sent a message to Esther, urging her to speak to the king and plead for her people. Esther, however, faced a dangerous dilemma. To approach the king without being summoned was a crime punishable by death. Mordecai's words pierced her heart. He reminded her that perhaps she had been made queen for such a time as this, to save her people. Esther knew that if she kept silent, her people would perish, and she too would be lost. But if she went to the king uninvited, her life was in grave danger. Esther decided to act with courage. She asked Mordecai to gather the Jews of Susa and fast for 3 days and nights. She too would fast and pray, seeking God's help. After those 3 days, she would approach the king. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and approached the king's throne. Xerxes saw her and, moved with favor, extended his scepter to her, granting her permission to speak. Esther invited the king and Haman to a banquet. At the banquet, the king asked Esther what she wanted, offering her anything, even half of his kingdom. Esther, in her wisdom, invited them to another banquet the next day, where she promised to reveal her request. Haman left the banquet that day feeling honored, but when he saw Mordecai still refusing to bow, his anger flared. He went home and built a massive gallows, intending to hang Mordecai on it. But that night, the king could not sleep. He had the royal records read to him, and when he heard of Mordecai's previous act of loyalty in saving his life, he decided to honor him. The next day, just as Haman was preparing to hang Mordecai, the king summoned him to ask how he should honor a man he wished to reward. Haman, thinking the king meant to honor him, suggested lavish rewards: a royal robe, a horse, a parade through the city. But to his horror, the king ordered Haman to carry out these honors for Mordecai, the very man he had planned to destroy. The next day, at the second banquet, Esther revealed her true identity to the king. She pleaded for her life and the lives of her people. Xerxes, enraged that anyone would threaten his queen, demanded to know who was responsible. Esther pointed to Haman. In that moment, Haman's fate was sealed. The king ordered his execution on the very gallows Haman had built for Mordecai. The Jews were saved, and Mordecai was honored in Haman's place. The king issued a new decree, allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. The day of their destruction became a day of victory, and the Jews celebrated their deliverance. To this day, the Jewish people celebrate the Feast of Purim, remembering the courage of Esther and the salvation of her people. And so, the story of Esther teaches us about courage, faith, and how God can use anyone, even in the most unlikely circumstances, to fulfill his plan. And remember, just like Esther, you might be where you are for such a time as this. Thanks for watching, and see you next week with another great Bible story.